Women's Six Nations 2021 is done. I've just caught up on all the games. To be fair, I watched them in the wrong order. I wanted to watch them in what I consider in my head to be the appropriate order, which is the fifth place final, the third place final, and then the final. For me, that's the way it needs to go. So that's the way I watched it. To be honest, usually it's kind of easy to avoid spoilers for the women's rugby, especially the Six Nations over here in New Zealand. It doesn't really get any airtime, but even I was spoiled to the results, especially of this game. You couldn't go on the internet and look at anything rugby without it being available, which is kind of a good thing because it means the game's getting some promotion. It's kind of a bad thing for me. It means I didn't watch it live and I was spoiled to the result. So, well, if you want to not get spoiled, you need to watch games live. That's always been my philosophy. We'll go over the game, some of the stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how things went. The first one, like I said, I watched was Scotland and Wales. It looks tight, 27-20, but remember there's a consolation try there at the end to Wales, which kind of makes things look like it was a one-score game for keeping it from a draw. Realistically, remember they scored like in the 83rd minute to bring the scoreline slightly more respectable. But I mean, it wasn't a hiding by any means. It was a nice close game. Scotland have a bit of dominance in some areas, which ultimately meant Wales were the second best team, but Wales also had some really good areas of their own. Great weather up in Scotland, I gotta say. It's really putting on a show, made for some good running rugby. Interestingly, Scotland got the first try really quickly through some numbers out on the left. The left winger, I've forgotten her name, but she scored the try and they made it 5-0 pretty early. So yeah, that was ominous start because too often when I've seen Wales, it's been them on the wrong end of a hiding because I've only really just started watching it, this Six Nations season. That being said, it didn't take too long for Wales to kind of push back. They got into Scotland's half, around about the quarter of an hour mark. Wales managed to earn a penalty by Scotland giving away a high tackle, and they opted for the 3. But it was a pretty bad miss from Wales. They missed the penalty, so a real let-off. But they continued to keep the pressure on down Scotland's end. 19 minutes, they had another chance. They went through more phases. I was really not used to seeing Wales down the other team 22 from the other couple of games I've seen of Wales. It's just always been them kind of defending on their own line or, trying to exit and then the next wave comes. So it was really kind of pleasing to see them actually get a chance to have a crack, but they blew one of the chances. I think it was Joyce. There was a big loopy pass, a cutout pass to the left wing, but Joyce was the second person from that left wing and assumed maybe the pass was first. She snatched it, just managed to bobble it. So a bit of a blown opportunity, but they did manage to go back for advantage and kick a penalty, so it's 5-3. And interestingly, Scotland on 26 minutes tried to run the ball out of their own 22, and Wales' defence says nope. And they win a breakdown penalty to the Welsh to kick it and go in front for like the first time this campaign. 6 points to 5. It doesn't last long. That seems to fire Scotland up because their big tight head Kennedy goes over for a try. A real props try, like scrum half passes it to Kennedy. She bulldozes like 4 defenders on her way to the line. It's not a far run, but it's a powerful one. Nelson had gone close in the build-up and they had advantage anyway. 12-6 at that point. Another one for Scotland on 34, a real close-range try with the loose head prop this time. What's her name? Bell? It's a spelling that I'm not sure how to pronounce. She only just barely had a gap to go under, but she just went straight under, like not even a metre up from the line. So a good props try. They missed the conversion, so it's 17-6 at half-time. At that point, it's like a decent game. It's close. Had some good entertainment. The Scottish forwards are looking good. The Welsh breakdown work is always pretty good. And like I said, it was nice to see Wales exert some pressure on Scotland for a change for me watching Wales. Second half, cracking start for Wales. At the start of it, Newman gets the try. And it's a kind of a bobbling loose ball in the build-up. And then the Welsh scrum half just decides to go blindside. She draws a tackler and then... Newman's got like a 2-on-1, not 2-on-1, a 1-on-1, and she just beats her marker and goes over for a try. Great conversion as well, 17-13. Suddenly it's properly game on at that point. That being said, 53 minutes, Scotland really pull it away. Gallagher gets a try. It's a maul try. So the Scottish forwards, like I mentioned, you got the try to the tight head, a try to the loose head, you got a maul try. It's hard for the Welsh players to kind of resist. They didn't even contest that one in the air. It was from a line out. They didn't contest it. They set for the maul. They still couldn't stop the maul. 24-13. And then 68 minutes, Musgrove goes really close. Nelson puts off a kick. It's got a wicked bounce. Musgrove looks to be steaming to the try line, like with all the defenders kind of all at sea. Just was the bounce has just taken them out of the game. But I think it's Joyce again who manages to cover for a great kind of. The commentator described it as a match-saving tackle because if that one had gone, to a try, it would have taken the game beyond them. But they kicked the penalty to make it a 14-point game, and I'm thinking 14 points is probably too much for Wales at that point. But it proved to be. But they still did manage to keep up their fight with the clock in the red. Their attack was still desperate. Scottish defence was still desperate. So credit to both teams for keeping on going, like 3 minutes plus past the 80-minute mark. But eventually Wales get it. Just they got numbers out on the left wing, and they get it through. So great finish at the death and a great conversion. 27 points to 20. So a good result, good game, pretty entertaining. Possession finishes 52-48 to Scotland. Territory 51-49 to Wales. So kind of even. Points per visit to 22, though, is 4-1, with Scotland having the 4. Turnovers won is 5-1 for Wales, so that's what I'm talking about, their work at the breakdown. Scotland had much faster ruck ball, which is also key to their kind of go forward. Tackling percentage, both sides are pretty even in the higher 80s. Joyce for Wales finishes with 230 run meters. That's the fullback, 6 defenders beaten. The Scottish fullback, is it Rolly, has 175 run meters and 10 defenders beaten. So the fullbacks were having a field day. All the Welsh back row won turnovers at some point. Thompson, the Scottish inside centre, also was busting it up and also solid on defence. 11 from 13 tackles, 110 run meters. So yeah, for that one, pretty entertaining. Like I said, I was pretty happy with that one. A really good watch. Nice to see a game that wasn't like over by halftime. It wasn't a total mismatch. It's the one thing I've been missing in the Women's Six Nations so far. And, yeah, all these games at halftime, were still pretty close. That's the only one that kind of, I guess, blew out a little bit. But even 25-5 is not like an absolute hiding. It's pretty comfortable. But, yeah. Second game was Ireland and Italy. Ended up being pretty comfortable in the end, 25 points to 5. Low scoring first half. First half at times dragged a wee bit, I guess, but beautiful day, it has to be said once again, just like the first game, which was actually the last game. Interestingly, because I saw Ireland had made a few changes. They had a different goal kicker this week. They didn't back her early when they had a penalty, which was, I thought, pretty kickable. They went for touch, and then from there they knocked on at the line out. So I was thinking it's a bit of one where maybe you need to take your points, but again, I wasn't sure if they went back in their kicker. Ireland. On 8 minutes, Wall got the first try of the game from a quick tap, interestingly, and she just smoked the Italian scrum half, Baratin. A bit of a mismatch to have a forward on a halfback, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Misconversion, so it's 5-0. Interestingly, on 20 minutes, the Irish inside centre got yellow carded for a high tackle. The referee, in her kind of summary, and she's very, I think they said she's a lawyer, and you can really feel it when she's going through stuff. She's quite pedantic, but accurate and efficient. So it's kind of drives me a little bit crazy, but at least she gets it right. She mentioned that there's force and it's a high tackle, but the mitigation is the kind of significant drop, and that she was bending at the hips, but still a yellow card. That being said, during the yellow card, Ireland do back their kicker, and she kicks a penalty to make it 8 points to 0. And that's the way it goes in a half-time, man. Ireland win the yellow card period, 3 points to zip. The second half, Murphy Crowe gets a try, and it's maybe my favourite try of the match. It's just such a well-worked bit of set-piece play. They've got a line-out. The line-out starts to maul it up. They draw in some defending players, and then they just get it out to Murphy Crowe, who's got a gap, like parting of the Red Sea style gap, and she just burns through. You can't afford to give her any space. She is lightning. She still has to kind of fend off a couple of tacklers, but it's pretty easy work for her. And suddenly it's 15-0. Italy don't have much luck when they get pinged for a pretty harsh, deliberate knock-on 50, and then a tackle without the ball, which is a pretty dumb play a minute later. And then that penalty, the second in a row, leads to a tap from Maloney, who just powers over the line from a pretty short distance, and it's 20-0 after 57 minutes. Game over at that point, realistically. Italy haven't scored at all. Italy, from there, though, do start to turn up the momentum. They do get some time down the Irish half, which they've been kind of struggling to do. They get held up after a heap of phase. I think it was Lyons, the replacement, who got a hand under the ball. Good defence, pretty desperate. But eventually, about 4 minutes later, they cracked the Irish defence. Just a pick and go after pick and go after pick and go, and eventually they managed to get over. It was a maul first, actually, and then a few pick and goes. So good stuff. At like 80 minutes, the game was done, but the Italians wanted to keep playing. They called for a scrum. They decided to try and run it out of their own half. Eventually, they bobbled the ball. Ireland get it to none other but Murphy Crowe, who again doesn't need a second chance to just burn over on that right wing for a try. They missed the conversion. That was a bit of a poor kick, but anyway, doesn't have any bearing on the outcome of the game. 25 points to 5, pretty comfortable. Possessions 47-53, but the Italians, man, 36% territory as my phone goes off, which I should probably turn off when I'm doing a video. Knock-ons also 13-7. So Italy, too many knock-ons, not enough territory, too much time with the ball down their own half. The Irish defence not giving much, 91% tackling efficiency, which is phenomenal. I mean, Italy was good at 86, but 91 is like top. Turnovers, one's pretty even, 4-3, with Ireland having the one more. Dominant tackles, though, 12-1. So I'm talking about that Irish defence. Not only is that accurate, but it's also powerful. The Italian tight head Guy has 13 from 13 tackles. Murphy Crowe finishes with 139 run meters and 4 broken tackles. Pete, the loose head, has also the biggest rate of dominant tackles for Ireland. She's a proper beast. It sucks that the ref often has to run to that little screen, but I'm not sure what other solutions would be. She spends a lot of time, it was the same with last week, she spends a lot of time running to that little screen to check the TMO's referrals. So, I mean, I guess you could have a little screen run out to them, but I guess if you're trying to reduce the contacts between people during the games, it makes sense to have a little screen set up. So, it just takes a long time. It gets your step count up, if nothing else. The last one was England and France. It came across like a proper final, didn't it? 10 points to 6. I think both these teams will be served well having now played in a final. Like, the Six Nations doesn't usually do a final. And nothing can really replicate that pressure, that intensity of a final. So I think both sides will benefit from this experience. It's a whole lot of experience for both sides. You saw some kind of uncharacteristic errors, like the goal kicking was pretty inaccurate. Some of the set piece stuff, wasn't at its normal slickness, but maybe that's just two teams. I mean, the goal kicking is not, but the two teams kind of matching each other with that intensity. But yeah, this game really was a pretty low scoring and tight final. It started well for England because they won the restart from the kickoff. And not long later, Scarrett had a big break and the French turned her over. So, yeah, the intensity was there and France went back down the other end on the right wing. So, yeah, very intense early. The first real point-scoring opportunity, I think, was on 20 minutes. And it seemed like a pretty straightforward kick for Scarrett. They won a penalty for the French not rolling away. She missed it. And that's where I'm thinking, this is just the pressure of a final. Making uncharacteristic errors. There were, I think, 3 missed kicks in the first half? So, yeah, both sides finished with 50% goal kicking. So, it's, as I said, kind of uncharacteristic. 28 minutes, the French offloading game was just so fun to watch. The tight head, I forget her name, offloaded to the winger, and then she ended up getting back up and was like a support runner not long later. So, it was really crazy. With the offloads and the support lines. And it looked like the fullback, Boulard, had gone over for a try. but the last pass was pretty obviously forward, so missed opportunity for the French. 37 minutes, the French tried to pass and run their way out of their own 22. It was giving me flashbacks of watching my Blues team play from the 90s when Carlos Spencer was our fly half. It was a tactical thing, and the French, for some reason in the final, were trying to do that. Maybe there was an opportunity on, but either way, they ended up getting a knock on, I think it was, and they went back for a knock on advantage, which they were still playing, which is maybe that's why they had to throw. Maybe they threw it around because they had advantage anyway. But on closer inspection, they realised that the preceding play, which caused the advantage, was a knock on for England. So they go to a scrum. From that scrum, England get a free kick. From that free kick, they tap it, and from that tap, a second phase later, Cleal is able to go over for a try, and it's 7 points to 0 at halftime. So it's kind of a chain of events that lead to the one and only try of the game. As I said, both sides missed penalties, but 7-0 it is at halftime. 42 minutes, the French put in a huge scrum, and their scrum was pretty dominant in this game. I think they win four penalties at scrum time. It's a bit of a penalty-giving machine for them, but the penalty hits the post, so it's another one. But France regather the kick from the post, win another penalty, and kick that one, so it's 7-3 on 45 minutes. Still very, very tight, very tense. Game continues on. 69 minutes. Another French big scrum, which leads to... they don't want to take the threes. It leads to them winning a breakdown penalty on 71 minutes. England guilty of not exiting their own 22. And again, France don't seem to want to take the kick, but someone runs a kicking tee on from the sideline. Maybe the coaches have just said, get the bloody tee on the field. And the ref spots it and says, once the tee is on the field, you are committed to taking the kick. So they kick it. This kick goes in off the post. Very tight. 7 points to 6. 75 minutes though, France with kind of a calamitous penalty considered. Traore comes in at the side of a maul, and it's just so obvious. It's right in front of the officials. There was no getting away from it. I couldn't believe she did that. But England's still up for the corner. They maul it, and France drag it down. It was a very, 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 very long advantage played. Some games you see them, they either have to get a certain amount of distance ahead before the advantage is over, or maybe they just call it after a certain number of phases. It was one of the longest advantages you ever see, but England couldn't get anything from the advantage. They go back for the penalty, which was a horrendously long time ago. They kick it, and it's 10 points to 6. There's only 30 seconds to go at that time. Scarrett took ages taking the penalty, which is sensible because there was about a minute and a half left. So there's 30 seconds left on the clock. From the restart, England do well to control it and then kick the ball out. So, crazy game. Aldcroft gets player of the match in that one. She has 14 carries and 15 tackles, so all over the place. Cleal, along with her try, makes 11 tackles. Bernadou, the tight head prop for France, has 17 out of 17 tackles. Benet makes 74 run meters, so she's the highest in the game, but still no tries for France in this one. Pretty hard to come by. Team stats, possessions 55-45 to England, territories 50-50, so England edging the possession, but that's about it. They also have more time in the French 22, 5 minutes to the French 3:26 and England's 22. So statistically it looks all right, but then you look at offloads, 16-5. The French just play such an entertaining style of rugby. They're a really easy team on the eye, a very fun team to watch, but also more knock-ons, 5-3. England had the faster ruck speed. France had more clean breaks, but still only 5-1. That's 5-1's a big difference, but 5 being the most line breaks in the game is not a whole heap of them, and that's reflected in the defensive stats. 92% tackling percentage for England, 93 for France, so both very, very tight. So defensive outfits kind of winning the day. Like I said, neither set piece was that great. The line-up percentage was a bit average. France's scrum, though, pretty dominant, although they gave away a few free kicks of their own. So, yeah, congratulations to England for that one. Certainly a really well-fought game. That's kind of what I was looking for. I love 10-6. compared to 55-10 or whatever. You know what I mean? Tight, fought, proper, edge of your seat. Don't know what's going to happen except you've been spoiled to the result a few days before. Like edge of your seat stuff though. So really, really fun game to watch. But yeah, it's been fun watching the Women's Six Nations this 2021 season. It's my first time to sit down and watch it. I certainly am a lot more familiar with the teams, the players, and the styles compared to what I was just a month ago. I'm still very much a novice in the women's game, but yeah, I hope to watch some more. It's been thoroughly entertaining, and yeah, it seems like a game which I think has a heap of potential to get a lot better as well. I mean, it's already a very good product, but there's certainly room for it to improve, especially if you can get some of these countries which are at a level below, like the top countries, to maybe get players playing full-time professional games. Then the sky's the limit. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. England deserving winners, France unlucky, goal kicking, pressure, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.